الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين ومن والاه ومن لم يوالي هذا الرسول فإما أن يترك أو يصمت. So if you're not gonna like a lot of things that we talk about because we are basically loyal to Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're gonna talk also about this book that I put forward, which is the Quran versus people. Al-Quran يتحدى الناس, and it's still defying everybody. We stopped at Egypt. How does Islam look to the West by country? Egypt. Before this, I'll have to say, as Arabs and Muslims, we have learned how to hate each other, and this is what we call in Arabic Sunnatul Hayah. It's the way of life, of the way of dunya, and that's how it is. When Globe Basha, John Globe, went and saw what's his name, the clown that everybody basically is praising now, Lawrence of Arabia, Mr. T. Lawrence. He told him that you're gonna find it difficult to get two Arabs agreeing together. Now, any person selling hummus or falafel on the streets of Zarqa city or Amman, Jordan, or even Cairo or Alexandria, or even in Damascus could have told you that. But because they were Oxford scholars, it was considered, ooh, they know stuff, dude, they know stuff. So, okay, they know stuff. Globe Basha was also shocked to find out that the Quran is not contained in the mosque. The Quran is also on the street. People, Muslims, deal with the Quran every day on daily basis. So what they wanted to do was to, as they say in Arabic, tahjim, to contain it within the mosque. Once you leave the mosque, leave the Quran there. Just like how Christianity failed in Europe after the French Revolution. But anyway, we know that Egypt is one of the oldest civilizations. And if it weren't for Egypt, the Arabs and Muslims would have actually lost a lot. Egypt has saved Islam and the Muslims more than 3 to 4 times. Even in today's day and age, when Iraq is facing strife and all this, and struggle and all this, what's happening in Damascus, everybody's basically running to Egypt. Same thing happened with Andalusia, Al-Andalus, when they also failed and got conquered and beaten by the Spaniards. All these books went to Al-Azhar Sharif, into Egypt too. So Egypt is the cradle of Islam. It's true that what they say, Islam is like rainfall that fell on the top of the mountains and ended up in the valleys. So Islam was revealed in Mecca and Medina, but the valleys were in Iraq, Damascus or Sham, and Egypt, and Yemen, of course. And Mecca was never the capital of anybody. So it was either Medina, and then Kufa, then Damascus, then Baghdad, and then Cairo, and then you take it from there to wherever. We had several. So politically we speaking, Egypt, Cairo, is one of the Arab Muslim capitals politically. So there's Cairo, Damascus, and Baghdad. And the 3 holy places in Islam is always, they're known: Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem, Ilya, Al-Quds. So these 6 cities are very hard to convince Muslims. You'll find it very hard to convince Muslims to destroy these cities. Whoever destroyed Baghdad, Iraq, of course, the Munafiq. It's very well known. We're coming to Iraq later. Egypt, however, we know Al-Azhar al-Sharif was built more than, it was by the Fatimid era. Fatimiyin. It was built in 972 AD. It's more than 1,000 years now. Taken over by Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, and he changed it into Shafi'i completely. Although the Fatimids were there, the population of Egypt was all Shafi'iyin, and none of them actually were Shia. But the Shia legislation tried to influence. They had a lot of philosophers who tried to get the Muslims off al-Madhhab al-Shafi'i. Just like today, Salafi want us to leave Shafi'i. I don't know why. But it didn't work. At the very end, when Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi took over Al-Azhar al-Sharif, and there were also Sunni, Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah studying Al-Azhar al-Sharif, he closed it down and made it only for Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah, and he banned the adhan in Al-Azhar al-Sharif for 100 years. Today Al-Azhar al-Sharif stands as a beacon of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. More than 20 million Muslims actually have studied in Al-Azhar. According to also Ali Gum'a, Sheikh Ali Gum'a, he said the same thing. We have about 20 million Muslims. That's 20 million hafidhin lil Quran. They all actually memorize the Quran. They know Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. You'll have to understand this. Remember the numbers. More than this, we had various attacks on Al-Azhar. It really baffles me sometimes when somebody says, why didn't we get someone from Al-Azhar to actually discuss about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? They say call him Muhammad and whatever. Dude, how could you have a sheikh standing over there and someone is calling Sayyidina Muhammad wal billah bad person? How could you do that? Wal billah. Why would you say that? So of course, A'immat al-Azhar would not tolerate that. Even I wouldn't tolerate that. I'm not going to sit with someone who's basically insulting Sayyidina Rasulullah. End of story. So there's no bab al-munaqasha. So there's no negotiating with that thing. So they all want Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar is still holding on to 1400 tradition, which is, it's not tradition, it is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This is Deenullah fil ard. So they said, you are exactly like the 14th century um, Christendom in Europe. What happened? We know the Christian blood in Saint Bartholomew's, who basically it was the day of massacre, and it happened in 1572. I've got all this written in 41, page 41. And basically France has moved on. After the French Revolution, they discarded the church and they become secular. Basically, they became dunyawi. And they wanted Al-Azhar al-Sharif actually to do that. They wanted to get Al-Azhar to say, well, okay, al-khamr, drinking alcohol should be halal. Why? Because it is spread. It doesn't make it halal. Well, we have to get rid of hijab, we have to get rid of salah, we have to get rid of zakah. They can't do that. Unfortunately, people misunderstand Islam and misunderstand the Quran is thabit. You can't change it. And that's been misunderstood completely. Al-Azhar is like the Vatican, or let's say it's like Oxford to the English, per se. Some Muslims even took on this, which is a munafiqeen. They took what those people wanted to do, and they wanted to actually put these ideas forward. But good luck with that. Good luck with that. The challenging ideas in Al-Azhar basically started from King Fuad. When King Fuad was actually kicked out, Al-Azhar was never ever a ministry. It wasn't even Al-Azhar is there to tell people how it is. Whether you want to take it or not, it's up to you. There's Adab al-Qabr after that, so be careful with that one. Egypt during the Ottoman Turks and before the Ottoman Turks was actually way too advanced than all of the Arab world put together. When people were dwelling in the desert, Egypt had public libraries. They had since even Sayyidina Amr ibn al-As, when he actually established the first al-Fustat, and that was the first seat of parliament, the first university. University here we're talking about, not university with our standards. Today's standards of university, if you want to show that you're an intellect and your university is actually up in this world, you'll have to say there's no Allah, there's no whatever, and Darwin is the Nabi wal billah, and the human being was a qird, was a monkey. Only then you will have this standard. But with this, we don't have that standard. Unfortunately, to the West, our standards are different from their standards. So we say yes, Al-Azhar, one of the oldest universities, and also Qayrawan, which is the oldest. Uqba bin Nafi' basically established Al-Qayrawan in Tunisia. That is one of the oldest universities and the seat of parliament. Remember, Al-Masjid was the seat of parliament and Shura and the Bayt al-Mal and Zakah and also the university. Masjid al-Fustat had Sayyidina Shafi'i had a corner in it. Egypt, I'm going to talk more about Egypt in part 2. But it was the first university. They taught Islam, they taught Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It was the first seat of parliament. It was also Bayt al-Zakah. It was also the Shura Council. Everything was there. Sayyidina Shafi'i was there, Al-Muzani was there, the student of Sayyidina Shafi'i, also Al-Rabi' ibn Sulaiman also was there, the one who wrote from Sayyidina Shafi'i all of his madhab, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Poets such as Al-Mutanabbi and all the others, Mutanabbi as much as Al-Tabari, Tafsir Al-Tabari, he was there. He met also Sayyidina Al-Bukhari was there. All of them passed that. You'll have to imagine Egypt those days was like Europe today. All right, and Europe was like, I keep on saying, like Yemen or Somalia. today. Revolution of the 25th of January, when Mohammed Morsi took over, scared the hell out of the Europeans, thinking that maybe it will become a second Daesh. Daesh is a Wahhabi, they're not Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It's an extreme Salafi Wahhabi, Salaf al-Talih, slaughtering everybody. Even we know that everybody was basically supporting Daesh because they wanted to get rid of Iran, Shia Iran. But you imagine this, a Wahhabi 300-year-old kid facing a 1,400 Shia, the 1,400-year-old Shia, the oldest two schools in the world, Shia Sayyidina Abu Hanif al-Nu'man. So it's like a 3-year-old kid facing a 1,400-year-old sheikh. You can't. There's no way you can win. So they thought this is what's going to happen in Egypt, because the concentration, subhanallah, for the past 15 years has been only concentrated on the Quran itself. Before that, it wasn't the Quran. Before that, it was Jama'ah and Jihad Islami. Terrorism. If you're a Palestinian, you're a terrorist by nature. If you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist if you hold a gun. If you're not, you're a jack Muslim. Today, if you hold the Quran, you're a terrorist, end of story, regardless. So 1.6 billion people in this world. I've heard this also from on the street. Let's nuke them, Hamza Yusuf says, Arabs will nuke each other. Get real, man. They want to nuke us, not us. In Islam, there's no such thing as using atomic bombs, end of story. The army, however, took over the streets. Brotherhood and Wahhabi, in my opinion, two faces for the same coin. One uses a tie and sits in parliament and calls parliament shura, and the other one wears the qatra and he starts screaming and shouting. It just doesn't make any sense. One of them learnt Islam by jack Muslims in the mosque. The other one basically went and did philosophy at university. None of them went to Al-Azhar al-Sharif. Al-Azhar al-Sharif has been always open. If you want to learn Islam, it is science. You really need to go and learn it properly. Overall, Egypt plummeted into havoc. Tourism fell to the ground, and what was in the minds of the West, that is Egypt became plummeted into civil disobedience because of the Quran. Imagine that. People holding the Quran, shouting Allahu Akbar, doesn't give actually a good image anyway. Sinai Desert also has been shown in the media as it might be lost to either Hamas or Jihad al-Islami, or maybe also to Daesh, because after seeing the flags basically flying on Daesh, people just went nuts. All this concentrating around that Islam comes from the Quran is the problem. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Moving on, Kuwait. I remember when I was in London, I told a Swedish boy in Piccadilly Circus. He said, where are you from? Well, I'm Jordanian or Palestinian or New Zealand or whatever. I lived in Kuwait those days, and I said, I mean Kuwait. So he didn't understand where that was. And I had to go and draw a map, yet he didn't understand. We had to go and look for a map. And we told him, it's this one here, you can't see it, it's a small dot. Yeah. He said, wow, that's too small. I might have offended some Kuwaitis in saying this. He said, but it should be part of either Iraq or Saudi. True. The Arab world is so small. Bahrain is a kingdom, and everybody's saying Bahrain is gonna save us from Shia Iran. MashaAllah. Good luck with that, Bahrain. Bahrain is a kingdom. Here in Melbourne, Bahrain, how big is Bahrain? If you're in Sydney, if you've ever come to Melbourne, it's from the zoo where we put the monkeys, right down to St Kilda. Right down to St Kilda, which is just before the nude beach, wal-'iyadhu billah. That's how big Bahrain is. There's more business here. Between them, there's Burke Street Mall, where every Christmas they jump about $2 billion worth of buying and selling and all this. Commercially, we are richer than Bahrain. We are so small that even if you put all of Sham, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Jordan together, we're smaller than New South Wales of Australia. Smaller. Imagine this. Kuwait is smaller than Victoria. Swallowed within 2 hours. On the 2nd of August 1990, I always commemorate 2nd of August 1990. That's where my life either started or finished. And every time we'd say it was taken in 2 hours. Kuwait cannot defend itself. None of the Arab world are able to defend themselves. If it weren't for the Americans, the Kuwaitis would have been living like the Palestinians, having maybe an organization or something like that. But the income from Kuwaiti's oil is more than Victoria put together. Like, this state of Victoria is bigger than Kuwait, yes, but it's not as rich as Kuwait. Kuwait can buy soldiers and stick them in the desert. That's how rich Kuwait is. Kuwait was bigger actually than what we see. It's Percy Cox who basically came in and just put the lines in the sand. Kuwait was from Dammam right up to about halfway near Basra. But then the Al Saud and the Al Sabah were actually always in struggle and strife to see where the borders start and finish. So Percy Cox came in and said, and the problem is, one of the grandson of Mubarak al-Sabah was so strong, and he said, if I ever become as strong as my grandfather, I will take this treaty and throw it away, which was something of to show you what the substance of Kuwaitis are made of. And he laughed at him, but it is true. If Kuwait had the chance and opportunity, they would actually throw it away and they will take their land back. But unfortunately, the English played on the disunity of the Arab. And why do you think we have embassies? It's just to mediate between us. Why would I have some Englishman mediate between Arabi and another Arabi, a Muslim and another Muslim? Well, it gets you to think of what's happening in the bloody Middle East. It's bloody. The blood is everywhere. All this within 12 hours, second of August 1990, it was swallowed. It was really sad to see actually Kuwait. But the thing is, why didn't the Muslims change their stance those days and have more unity? In fact, they had more disunity after that. Imagine, Kuwait, as we said, is smaller than any state. If you look at any state or any region in this world, Jordan is smaller than even Victoria. Egypt would be like as big as maybe New South Wales or slightly bigger. There's a website called thetruesize.com. Go and check that and check how big your country is. I found that very interesting. Moving on, we see Iran. Iran has been always, since 1979, the face of the Islamic Revolution, since Al-Khomeini until today. We've seen the movie Fargo, Ben Affleck going rescuing the world, and we've seen also how historically you have to really check your facts before you watch even Hollywood. Hollywood is so influential that if they portrayed Islam the right way, half of China would wake up the following morning going, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. But unfortunately, the world is not there to show what Islam is. US and Iran have been shouting at each other for years. They wanted Saudi to also join the thing, but Saudi is Wahhabi. So for the Najdi clerics, Iran Shia are kafir. Now, how could you convince 1.6 billion Muslims that anyone says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is a kafir? It's going to be far-fetched. The islands of Abu Musa has been taken from the UAE in 1971 or whatever. Iran is having claims also in Bahrain. Bahrain actually should be either a small Firij, which means a neighborhood for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, they should actually fly the Saudi flag and say, that's it, we're Saudis, man, end of story. This is just ridiculous. The Arab world has been divided and divided and divided. This is no, and there's more in future. I might be dead now, but please tell us if Jordan became 2 and Saudi became 3 or whatever, because this is the plan. The plan is also to divide Iraq into 3 or 4, and Syria too, and Egypt. Wallahu al-musta'an. Fatwas of Iran have reached high and low. Everybody knows Salman Rushdie. Nobody reached them anyway. All they did was basically deplete the budget of the security forces in saving Mr. Rushdie. Keep on spending money, dude. No one's gonna touch him anyway. There's a lot of people on the internet insulting Islam and insulting Rasulullah wal-'iyadhu billah, and nobody's moving anything. Just change the channel, man. That's all it is. We become immune to this. We know that this thing is happening anyway. Iran is a superpower. They've been actually developing the weapons for the past 40 odd years now, since 1979. Where else? The Gulf states. This is where America got cheated out of everything, and Donald Trump knows this. We Arabs stopped building since Al-Andalus. Iranians have been building since 1979. The Americans have been given money to the Saudis to build and do what. Instead, all of those Gulf states are spending the money in Europe. The problem is America, damn right, will have to feel that they've been cheated out. We could have had the best schools, the best hospitals, the best cancer research, the best of everything. But unfortunately, we didn't spend the money where it should go. So Iran being a superpower, Iran now has grown ever since the Iraqi freedom. Also, if you remember, I'm going to talk about Iraq in 1990, about the invasion and all this. The Shia were given the opportunity to actually rise against Saddam, but then the President George Bush said that there was George Bush Sr. He said he received a phone call that be careful, the Shia is coming on the way. Maybe a Saudi prince or whatever just called them and said the Shia are coming. So what we were afraid of is basically the Shia crescent from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran. It's happened now. In today's day and age, this crescent is there, and the Shia is having they're a step ahead of all of us. When Daesh happened in Iraq, Iran didn't see Daesh Wahhabi; they saw Sunni, and unfortunately, they've killed all the Sunni that they actually came across. That's the unfortunate truth. And more Sunni died من أهل السنة والجماعة, and nobody basically bat an eyelid. The Kurds, they're Sunni. Now they want their own country. So the Kurds, they say that we're Kurds, we're not Sunni. I met one Kurd in, what was it, in Australia, New Zealand and all this, and he told me, our blood enemy are the Arabs. We need to get rid of them. So the Kurds are not nice people, basically. They do not go on Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Unfortunately, that's the honest truth. They want their own state, and their state is to be carved from Syria, Iraq, Iran, good luck with Iran, and Turkey. We've just seen the Turks invading Syria just to get rid of the Kurds. So the power struggle in the Middle East is not a good one. It's an ugly power struggle. Whether Ahl Sunnah or not, they have all plummeted into al-Qabaliyah. This has nothing to do with the Quran. Don't put the Quran between them. That's got something to do with them totally. But in the West, people are showing this is the Quran. They all hold it. The only two people who are holding the Quran is the Sunni Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the Shia. The Shia have their own interpretation. We have our own interpretation. Our interpretation goes onto the four A'imma. End of story. Shia, they have the Imamiyya. The rest is hogwash. Salafi, non-Salafi, Ikhwani, non-Ikhwani, Zaidi or whatever. That's all nothing. Fluff. The main two schools who actually hold the Quran is Sunni and the Shia. Those are the two biggest groups. Salafi, there's just a growing group. There's wherever there's money in any mosque, there's Salafi. Coming on to the Iraqi freedom, the mission Iraqi freedom was all a sham. Unfortunately, Noam Chomsky even himself said it's been a massacre. More people died in Iraq, and Iraq is the holiest place because it is the seat of the Abbasi. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for any. Pakistan, just like how Iraq is linked to the Daesh and whatever, Pakistan unfortunately is linked to the Al-Askar Al-Akhdar, Askari Tayyib, whatever. Mumbai bombing basically was the biggest mark to show the world that this is the Quran, those are the people, those are Mujahideen. Nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with, it's all politics. To me, it's all politics, has nothing to do with the Quran anyway. Going into a train station and shooting people is totally un-Islamic. Where's that in the Quran? Where's that in the Hadith? Doesn't exist. And for Southeast Asia, I'll have to make another video for that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.